I just want to touch upon one of the sad pieces of American history of the 1800s, Yeah, we always talk about slavery, and oftentimes we tend to talk a little bit about what happened to Native Americans here in their own country. I mean, I think the Native American Indians, they had it made in the shade. They had this entire country to themselves, and they were able to, although they might have had rivalries with other tribes, which happens anywhere on earth, there's always going to be some differences held between different groups living in whatever geographical location. But this is one of the tragic things that happened in America. This is something that doesn't get talked about that much, and we know why. Because a certain group engaged in the extermination of this creature right here, the American bison. The Native Americans hunted and lived off of this animal probably for many, many centuries. Just as corn was just as important to Native Americans as the bison. It was their staple. This is how they fed their tribes, they fed their children, and they actually used the skin as coats. Look at the number of bison that were killed. And the main reason that the bison were killed at these gigantic numbers is because white Americans felt that the importance of the bison to the Native Americans as their food source, this would enable them to starve Native Americans. In the 1800s, they calculate 60 million bison were exterminated. In 1830, 40 million. In 1840, you're looking at 35 million. What they did was they tried to starve the Native Americans and separate the Native American from their beloved bison. This is something that's seldom talked about, and this is another example. When it comes to the black experience in America, which fuels a critical race theory, they don't want that taught in American schools. But what happened to the Native Americans and the relationship that they had with the bison and the extermination of the bison to starve the American, that is another thing that needs to be taught as critical race theory here in the American schools. We need to start getting away from this whole notion that only a certain Eurocentric education can be taught to children here in America.